Welcome to Epicenter, the hub of innovation in the heart of Helsinki, where ideas come to life and creativity thrives, where innovation meets community. Get ready to learn, network, and make an impact. Let's go.
All right, let's give a huge round of applause to yourselves. Come on. It feels so good to be back here. It's been a little while. We took a little break over the winter months, or well, I guess Christmas time. But hey, I see so many familiar faces today that you all know what's coming, right? It's the part of the day where you make me feel good about myself. Yeah. So if you don't know, my name is Joey. I'm the head of community here at Epicenter Helsinki, and we have a tradition. We take the first 10 seconds of each event that we host here, and we absolutely lose our minds. And the reason why we do that is because we want to create a safe space. We want to create the energy. We want to push it out. We want to make sure that all those jitters are out so that you're going to ask amazing questions when our fantastic panelists come on stage. So first 10 seconds, absolutely lose your brains. I want to hear you screaming. I want the roof to shake, okay? 1, 2, 3, go. Come on, the stairs can do better than that. Come on, let's go. Woo! Yeah. All right. Okay, so you're gonna get better at that later, right? When I ask it. More right? Okay. This is the sound I hear in my dreams when I'm feeling bad about myself. I hear, Joey, they're clapping for you. Okay. So welcome to Epicenter Helsinki. As you know, we are a community. We're a meeting arena for local change makers who want to come together to accelerate their growth and innovate with impact. Epicenter stands as a hub and a meeting arena and a testament for the power of community. And we know that communities are more than just people in proximity, but they are a network of shared ideas, dreams, and aspirations that push us forward, all making sure that our local eco-entrepreneurial system is growing rapidly. All right, so welcome to Hired. Many of you came to this series last year, and it was so popular that we decided that we wanted to bring it back again for 2024. So last year, we covered topics like DEIB, employer branding, Finland's talent shortage, and so much more. This year, we're going to host conversations on Gen Z and Alpha in the workplace, cultural intelligence, the key to keeping and retaining foreign talent, and how we prevent burnout. These are all topics that we're going to kind of touch upon throughout the year. The whole point of this is to get people who care about talent, who care about themselves and their work environment, to come together once a month to really share ideas. And this is a great place to do that. So tonight, this event is dedicated to exploring and addressing the challenges and opportunities in achieving diversity at its highest level of organizational leadership. Our focus tonight is to unravel the complexity, celebrate the successes, and to lay out a roadmap for a more inclusive leadership landscape in various sectors. So how does that all sound? Okay. If we had screamed a little bit louder, you'd be like, Joey, that's so great. What an awesome job you're doing. Okay. Yeah, okay. So for 2024, I'm actually going to try something new. I'm actually going to challenge myself to pronounce Finnish last names. All of 2023, I said, never going to happen. We're all going to be on a first name basis. So please bear with me as I butcher every single name this year. and then just think, how charming, right? Okay, so let's move forward. Before we welcome our esteemed keynote speaker to the stage, let's take a moment to understand why diversified leadership is far more than an industry catchphrase. It's the backbone of forward-thinking and high-achieving organizations. The evidence is clear and compelling. Teams with a rich mix of backgrounds and viewpoints don't just lead the way in innovation and adaptability, they also outshine their less diverse counterparts in performance. So consider this. Organizations with a strong diversity in their executive teams are not just a little bit, but significantly more likely to surpass their competitors in profitability. Yet, the true essence of diversified leadership goes beyond the numbers. It cultivates an environment ripe with creativity, embraces a spectrum of thought and ideas, and truly reflects the diverse world we cater to and operate within. So today we have the privilege to welcome Takura, a visionary whose journey encapsulates resilience, innovation, and transformative leadership. He is the chairperson for the Nordic Migrant Expert Forum, whose task is to bring expertise and insights into the challenges faced by internationals and solutions available to public authorities and other stakeholders in the integration in the Nordic region. Currently, he works as one of the chief specialists in Business Helsinki's Migrations Affairs Unit. He has worked with migration and integration issues for more than 10 years in both Sweden and Finland for various organizations. But we want to know, how did he get there? What obstacles were overcome? How were these challenges transformed into opportunities? And what invaluable insights can be offered for those embarking on their own leadership paths? So get ready to explore all of these questions with my new friend. I said I was going to try last names, but I'm so scared. So we're just going to go back to first names today. So please welcome to the stage Takura, who is the Chief Specialist Migrations Affairs Unit at Business Helsinki. I chickened out hardcore. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Please welcome.
Thank you, Joey. Wow. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. But thank you for the amazing words, introductory words. My name is Takura Matsuetu, as Joey just said. It's an absolute honor to be here today and kind of like share a little bit of my story. Joey had asked me to tell exactly about that, and then I had prepared slides that have nothing to do with that, so we're not gonna use those. But in any case, so my journey starts off in Zimbabwe, where I was born in 1985. My mother was an estate agent, and my dad was doing his thing somewhere. But after growing up in Zimbabwe and going to boarding school in a town called Norton, I moved from Zimbabwe when I was 16 years old and started law school when I was 17 years old at the University of Namibia, where I studied law. So my law journey was kind of one of those things where your parents tell you what they want you to be, and you kind of have like different ideas about what it is that you really want to do. But I did it anyway, but at the end, I decided to change paths. So after studying a bit in Namibia, I then moved to Sweden, where I studied international migration and ethnic relations at the University of Malmo. But when I moved to Sweden, I didn't go straight to Malmo. I lived in a tiny town called Mölle, which is on the southern edge of Sweden. It was a nice little place, very quaint and very calm. That was my first experience with snow, and I remember that it just cut my face, so I really didn't enjoy it all that much. And then moving from Mölle to Malmo, when I started studying international migration, I think that I was mostly driven by some of the things that I started seeing in Sweden at the time. So everybody knows that Malmo is a hub spot for internationals. It's a rich place full of culture, full of different foods, full of different people, but also it has its challenges, a lot of them. I used to hang out in Rosengård, and I had a student apartment out in Västerhamn where we used to stay. But I think that I had the best times when I actually went out and hung out in Rosengård, because I didn't see the danger or the problems that were being published in the newspapers. I just saw people that were trying to earn a living, families that were sharing food and hanging out. And for some reason, that was part of what motivated me in my own journey to then become interested in international migration issues. From Malmo, I worked for a couple of NGOs, but one NGO specifically, Spiritus Mundi, was pretty nice because I met this guy named Henrik Melius, who was actually a musician. And he had started this NGO, and his purpose was that he wanted to encourage people to integrate by using culture, by using music, by sharing drums and hanging out and drinking tea and stuff like that. So one of the first kind of like integration projects that I got involved with was gathering a bunch of Swedish middle-aged natives and a bunch of international young people, and we went to Saudi Arabia. That was an interesting trip because Saudi Arabia is beautiful and people live really well out there. But obviously, we also know all of the challenges that are in Saudi Arabia. But I think that maybe one of the things that came out of that trip that was absolutely beautiful and unique was the fact that on our journey back, after having made art with local children, after having made music and film and met local cultural people and stuff like that, was how quickly people's minds kind of started to change on the ride home. And that for me was direct impact from a very short period with natives in a completely foreign land. So how do I find myself at Helsinki? Well, I moved here in 2012 because of love. I met my wife at the University of Malmo. She thought that I was annoying as hell. But after that, we were forced to have like one session together, one task together. And we became friends. We started hanging out. Actually, first we moved to Namibia. Moved back to Namibia for a while, where she was doing her finishing off her master's, and I was working for a Microsoft distributor at the time in marketing. When we moved here in 2012, because I spoke Swedish from Sweden, I thought that I'm not going to have a problem finding a job in Finland, right? Everybody speaks Swedish in Finland. Boy, was I wrong. Not in Tampere, where I actually live. But what was funny was that actually one of the first jobs that I applied for when I was in Tampere was a Swedish-speaking job. And I remember specifically they had written over there, this is a job that requires native-speaking language. When I applied for it myself, I didn't get it. But then through hanging out with friends, I bumped into a German guy who was working for the same company. So he put in a word for me and said, hey, this guy really does speak Swedish. Maybe you should give him the job. So that speaks to the power of networking. But what I really wanted to do as soon as I got here, while I was studying my Finnish courses and they had that integration process, they said to us that, well, if you want to find a job, don't think about the public sector or NGOs and stuff like that. They're not really hiring. But I really wanted to work in migration and integration issues because I thought that it's an important topic. So what I did in the beginning is I found my way into the city of Tampere. First, it was harjoitelu or apprenticeship. And while I was there and I was giving advice in English about people moving here and trying to figure out life and facing different challenges and stuff like that, I realized that they were purchasing the service for a couple of hours a week. So I started thinking that how do I make myself become a permanent part of this structure? So I started collecting all of the data about all of the clients that they used to get, how many of them they come, whether these clients are actually getting the service that they need, as much of it as they want. And based on all of that data, I presented it to my leader at the time and I said, listen, instead of paying 45 euros an hour for this, you could hire me on full time and I could serve more clients because obviously you have a need. And that's how I actually landed my first job in the city of Tampere. Thank you. But obviously in the beginning it wasn't all the time, it wasn't full time, so I had a little bit of a side gig as well as many of us internationals have. We registered Toi Minimi and we try to figure out ways of helping companies and selling our services and stuff like that, which is good. But ideally, obviously, you want to have the safety, security that comes with a permanent job. So luckily, as time went on, because in the field that I work in, people started moving more. Then we had different crises. I started working for the Red Cross at some point, working closely with different migration agencies, trying to make sure that unaccompanied minors that were moving here would go through the reception process as well. And then from there, I actually got asked back to come to Tampere, which was brand new for me. It was like, okay, maybe I made a mark. And as soon as I got into the city of Tampere, when I came back, I understood that the reason why they had asked me was because our boss was leaving, and they wanted me to take over the unit and have a team of about 7 people in these advisory services that we were providing at the time. In the beginning, it was very scary, but we had a very good team. We had very experienced people that were working there, and I could rely on their expertise and their experience to make sure that, that the service that we were delivering was going to work. But as we continued working in that environment, I started noticing my initial realization that the migration and integration field for the longest while has been a very qualitative space. The reports were qualitative. There wasn't a lot of data. There wasn't enough information about who these newcomers are, what they can do, what skills they have, what experiences they have. So we started working on starting to create ways of utilizing technology to provide migration and integration services. The first thing that we created was an app that was called Neovo, just to make sure that people don't need to leave their jobs to come and ask a question about what does this Keller paper mean. So we did that in Tampere, and we trialed it for a while, and then during COVID, it kind of picked up. I'm not sure how it's going now, though. After we did that, I started doing an integration CRM for the city of Tampere before it became a national idea. So we created, with Microsoft Dynamics, an integration CRM where the idea was basically that we have data about all of the people that we deal with in terms of what their qualifications are, what their skills are, and what their experiences are. But then again, it was also a static kind of space. So we started thinking that, well, we would like to maybe start matching people automatically to jobs. While we were working on that, in the Aurora AI program that the government then launched at that time, I then got wind of this Nordic Migrant Expert Forum that was also starting at the same time, where the idea was basically to gather a bunch of experts in migration and different kinds of fields to start advising the ministers that are responsible for migration and integration in the Nordics. Luckily enough, as a member of Think Africa, which is an organization that I volunteered for, I then applied to be a member of that, and I've happily been volunteering on this platform for about 2 years now. Nonetheless, right at the end of my tenure at the city of Tampere, after we started working with AI and chatbots and automated matching and stuff like that, one of the main things then that we started thinking about was, well, because I had then finished also my master's, or started my master's in geographic information systems, migration is definitely a lot about movement, about location, about the information, about people, where they are, how well they're doing, what challenges they're facing, and maybe what needs they may have. So in the end, what we did was we started using geographic information systems to start measuring how accessible services for migration and integration are, and whether or not that has an impact in the levels of migrant integration. And that was the last thing that I did in the city of Tampere before I got this amazing opportunity to join the team in the city of Helsinki as chief specialist. And my job there basically is to make sure that the action plan around work, employment, and education migration goes forward. But I came into a team of 18 great people that are experts in their field, that is led by a German man that has international team members where we don't have a single language. We use English and Finnish, and we just make sure that everybody has a space to talk, to express themselves, to show their expertise, and to take part in the teamwork that we're trying to build and make an impact. One of the things that I think that, for example, in our unit that we're doing very well when it comes to trying to push diversity within the leadership roles is the fact that, for example, just simply the fact that we make a conscious effort to guarantee that we provide opportunities for internationals to come and have internships in our office. We are actively trying to impact on political decisions. One of those issues, for example, that we were just speaking about this morning was why international experience in the labor market from outside Finland is not recognized. This is something that doesn't maybe sound like a big deal, but for example, if you're talking about a nurse who just got hired and they have 10 years experience within that field, if they would just get that work experience, that could be the difference between them being able to bring their family members over to Finland. And that is a very central thing in trying to guarantee that we have the international skills that we need. But also the fact that we need to start recognizing the skills that are here, the talent that is here, that is not being used. And this is one major issue, because there the way that we measure integration right now is whether or not people are working. What if you're working in the wrong field? What if you're working in the field in a field that is other than your qualifications? People like that are very hard to find, to bring them back into the service system. But we're starting to think about that, my colleagues and I. How do we get underemployed internationals back into working life? And not only just into working life, but also that they thrive. The action plan that the City of Helsinki has right now regarding work, entrepreneurship, and education-based migration also says that they have a target of making sure that the international staff within the city actually reflects the population of the Helsinki region. So by 2025, the City of Helsinki is targeting that 17% of their staff would be international. It's a great opportunity. And those are great steps and great dedications that a big organization like the City of Helsinki has done. But sometimes they can't find us. So we need to be more visible. How do we become more visible? How do we bring our skills out? How can we show the fact that we can make an impact? This is why I was actually very happy that I was invited to speak over here, because we need to be more visible. But I'm not going to talk too much anymore. I think that my time is about to go out. So I will, I was just going to say why diversity matters to me. Again, I'm pressing the wrong button. Why diversity really matters to me is because I have 3 young children, 2 boys and 1 girl. My girl just turned 1 year old. And for me, I just want to make sure that they get an opportunity to shine as well in the country that is their home as well. So these are the kind of things, at least, that motivate me. And just to leave you, I will leave you with this quote that I shall not read, but hopefully that you've enjoyed this talk. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's keep it going. You're going to actually stay with us on stage.
Okay.
We get to hear more from you in the panel. Please, you can have a seat wherever you like. I'm just going to scroll through. That was great, huh? Okay, now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes, burning questions. So don't worry, you're going to have an opportunity to ask Takura questions when we get to the Q&A portion. But let's invite our first panelist up. So the first leads culture and change consultancy competence at EA Advisory. Her role is culture and transformation. Leadership involves leading clients' change experiences, but also acting as the hiring manager and leading a team. She works on organizational transformation, building cultures in example M&A situations, as well as supporting executives with people analytics. Personally, she is known as the butterfly effect because she will keep flapping her wings as long as it takes to create movement. So please help me welcome to the stage Erja, who's a culture and change consultant lead and senior manager at EY.
Thank you. I'll spare you with my middle name, but you're going to have to do the surname.
Privately.
Any day now, I'll flap my wings as long as it takes.
Klemmola.
Yeah!
Oh, geez. Okay, so please, to round up the panel, I invite the former global project manager at Wunderman Thompson, managing content for several high-profile clients like Nokia and Volvo. Now, as the founder and CEO of Crest Impact, she specializes in shaping inclusive organizational cultures and has designed and facilitated anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs internationally. Her work in social impact and advocacy has led her to collaborate with esteemed institutions and speak on global platforms, firmly establishing her as a sought-out expert and influencer in the DEI space. So please help me welcome to the stage Mary Waweru. Mary Waweru, who is the CEO and founder of Crest Impact.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so now that we went through everyone's bios, I'm going to kind of go right into it, yeah? So despite Finland's reputation as a stronghold of progress, we recognize that there's always room to grow, especially when it comes to representation, visibility, and inclusion in our professional sectors. And so I'm so thankful for you all to be here to join in this discussion. So in recent years, Finland has witnessed an increasing number of companies and organizations adopting diversity and inclusion policy. As I mentioned earlier, when I was talking over and over, we hear studies that state companies with diverse leadership teams report higher innovation revenue. So this is going to be for everyone on the panel. So given all of the encouraging data that the studies show, a gap still remains between policy and practice, between intent and actual lived experience. So from a diverse perspectives, which we have in the panel, how do you assess the current trajectory of diversity leadership in Finland and the global corporate landscape? And what pivotal changes are needed to accelerate progress here? Loaded question, but we'll go right at the beginning. Please.
Yes, I think the biggest challenge we're having now is that we don't have representation. We speak a lot about diversity, 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 but you can speak all day. If you do not have people represented in leadership, you're just talking. So until we have people in the spaces and in the platforms and in the organizations that are actually going to effect change, we are not doing anything. We're simply talking. So we need to have the representation. And the second thing is that we are not having training. We don't have enough training because we are moving people around, moving them around from human resources, from this, from that, and assuming that people know everything they need to do or everything they need to learn while doing DEI work. And this is not going to work. So we need people to be retrained. We need people to unlearn and to relearn things the correct way. Otherwise, we're just talking. So let's go back to representation and let's go back to learning.
I see some head shaking, yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and I think that maybe one of the things that we've kind of also noticed is that one of the challenges that maybe companies are facing when it comes to DEI is also maybe the approach in which they receive some of the training. So although companies are becoming more and more aware of DEI issues, I don't think a lot of companies are aware of how to harness DEI as an investment to actually harness how people can innovate more, how can solve problems a bit differently and stuff like that. And I think that that's something that maybe the landscape needs a little bit more of.
So training obviously is one major change that can sort of accelerate progress. Is there anything else that we can sort of think of collectively here? Maybe Arja?
Yeah, definitely. So at EY, we're all about micro-learning. So doing micro courses, micro impact on our diverse teams, and also how we speak to our clients. But we also love to talk about the two sides of diversity. The other one is on the surface, and the other one is within. And within, we have things like neurodiversity, different styles of being, different types of learning, geeks and non-geeks, all of that stuff is within, and it's still diversity, and it still takes the same things to lead those people. So for us, it's not only about the superficial things, but it's also about things underneath.
Can I add something? I think we also have a lot of data that's available to tell us what the problem is, what is missing, and what we need to do. But we are not having organizations that are stepping up and saying, okay, we do see this, we realize it's a problem internally, it's a problem externally, and we can actually create programs, we can actually have initiatives to solve these issues. So we are not having organizations doing that. So most of the times when we talk about diversity, organizations say, the biggest organizations say, well, we have people from, 10 different nationalities, we have people from, that doesn't really work. We need for them to say, well, this is the actual problem, and this is what we are dealing with, and we are going to deal with it uniquely because different sets of people experience life differently and experience challenges differently. Like you mentioned before about people being underemployed. That's also some information. So why are people underemployed, and which groups of people are underemployed? So these are things, we have the information, but what are we doing with it?
Yeah, there's tons and I mean, I don't know how many reports I read, just sort of doing research for this conversation. And so, if that data that does exist, well, how does that get
Yeah.
implemented? And I think that we have a little section on that later on, but. We know that individuals from diverse backgrounds encounter a range of overt and covert challenges that can impede their progress toward leadership goals, significantly, influencing their professional journey. The Nordic Business Diversity Index, which just came out recently, underscored a pronounced homogeneity in leadership roles, particularly in terms of nationality, with small cap companies in Helsinki having as much as 92% Finnish nationals in management roles. And the Swedish nationals were the second most represented in that category group. So could we identify and maybe elaborate on some of the key systemic, cultural, psychological hurdles that you've observed that are significantly hindering the ascent of exceptionally talented individuals with diverse backgrounds to these leadership roles?
Yeah, I can maybe start on that. There's definitely a cultural issue. In the Nordics especially, people are trusted as a face value. So you really don't have to push yourself to become something. You just have to do exactly what Takura did. So make a case, have a mission, be a leader that wants to serve as a platform to others, and then you become a leader. Leadership is a verb. It's something that you need to want to do. It's not a prize that you get after certain steps that you do. It's you need to have a mission for it, and then you have all the ways to do that in Finland as well, like we have Takura here with us.
I think I kind of agree with that, and I do also disagree with that because it's very simplified. I don't think it's as easy as wanting to be a leader and saying, hey, this is what I can do. Can you see me? Because most people don't get that opportunity. Most people are not going to get to the networks or have the experience or the people around Takura. So other people are going to have less opportunities. And I also think just speaking about this report itself, they've done this report also, I think, last year. And I have specifically spoken about this. And I do not want to affirm anything that they are doing when their own organization is not diverse. So I do not want to support, I don't want to speak or expound on a report that is created by a group of people that has no, for example, racial diversity. So I'm not going to do that.
I think that's an excellent point. And I think maybe to go back to some of these systemic issues is I mean, there's a lot of kind of like kinks along the way about people even finding their way into the door before we even start talking about leadership. The fact that, a lot of people's education is not recognized in this country, so they have to kind of like re-educate themselves. The fact that we have a lot of roles that demand levels of finish that are probably not necessary for those jobs. The fact that, just your name has an impact on whether or not you walk into the door for an interview. There are so many things that need the kind of attention and dedication to actually making that change that still exists in a lot of spaces, and it takes time. And although I can say that I do recognize my privilege and I do recognize the opportunity that I have, it wasn't easy. One, I had to work twice as hard, but then also at the same time, I know people that are more qualified than I am that are not in the spaces that they should be. And this is kind of like one of those things that...
I can definitely agree with that. As a hiring manager, I do see that happening as well. Every day, every week. I just hired our first non-Finnish speaker into our team, and I've been at VY for 2.5 years now, and it was the first one. We don't have a rule that everyone should be speaking Finnish, but we're still the first one.
And I think we also need, many times we who are the immigrants, when we see organizations hiring people from different backgrounds, different communities, different countries, or different races, then our work is to applaud them because we see them and we see the steps they're making. It's a very natural reaction. But I also want us to start looking at the organizations deep within. Yes, they're hiring people from here and there, people different religions, but what do we have in their HR team? Who is on their recruitment team? That's where we need to see, you know what? Yeah, we see there's a problem, and we are starting from within. So we are not just presenting as companies that are diverse. So we need to start seeing that your human resources teams and your recruitment teams are also diverse, because then it's kind of superficial. And it also shows us when you do not have diversity in leadership or the positions that matter, it means that we have to question, are these people going to be safe in an environment where they're the only one? You don't want to be the only one in an organization. As a black woman, I'm telling you, if everyone who's here has probably had an opportunity to see the research everywhere, it's very difficult for us. So women get a lot of uh, different treatment compared to men. Now, when you're a woman and you're a black woman, then the experiences get a bit more intense. So we don't want to be the only one in the organization. I want to see leaders who look like me as I enter the organization. I want to know that it's normal for me to speak, for example, with my energy. I don't have to be, I want to know that it's okay for me to be me. I want to know that it's okay for me to speak about issues that have to do with racism, for example. So if you don't even have leaders who have shown the organization it's okay to talk about racism, but you can talk about gender issues, then I see you, I applaud you, but I'm like, well, this is on the surface. I want to see more.
Well, that kind of leads me into a direct question that I had for you, Mary. So thank you for setting that up for me. Who knows? Maybe we planned though. And thank you for setting that up. So with your profound expertise in anti-racism, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging initiatives, could you discuss the challenges organizations face in genuinely embedding DEIB principles into their leadership structures? As you told me on one of our calls, that talk is cheap, right? So how can companies move beyond superficial measures, like you just mentioned, to create lasting, impactful change in leadership diversity?
I think first we need to understand what is diversity to us, because many times we are either taking definitions from other organizations or other countries, and then we are just taking them and sticking them on ourselves as organizations. So I think the first challenge is that there's a confusion. People don't really know what diversity is, but they say they do, or they say they don't. So there's a lot of confusion. Understand what diversity is. And then how do we learn? Who are we learning from? Because if we are doing things the same way the last decade, we are not changing anything. So we also need to change our cultures within the organization. Our learning culture, the way we do things, that's, I think, the biggest challenge. People want to do good. People are listening. People are seeing the data. But if you're not taking the steps to change your culture, if you're not taking the steps to do something different yourself, then I think that's where people are kind of stuck. So who is making the first move and who's making the move that actually is going to bring about changes? So let's not just talk about it. Let's not just bring people from different countries and say, yeah, no, we have diversity. No, you have people from different countries. That's all you have. But we need to know that you have a culture that is safe. And also we need to have a culture that is going to attract more people from these different countries that you're talking about. So it can't be just about, well, we have someone from Sweden or we have someone from Japan. Okay, can other people from Japan be able to apply and be able to thrive in these organizations? Or we have a black woman. Well, can other black women come? Or are you simply having, for example, black women from a certain socioeconomic status who've gone to certain schools, who've been from another side of the world because you could be from America, for example. You could be from Africa, very different experiences. So you also have to factor all these things. It's not simply about having representation. We need to have people from different or similar backgrounds being attracted because of the culture within. But that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm seeing that they're not, they need to work on.
Can you talk about this area from the EY perspective? What's being done, internally to embed, this structurally?
I can. There was one word that Mary said that also I think that Takura said somewhere in his speech. It was about the safety part. So everyone is responsible for that at the organization. So leadership is not a me game. So you can't just be yourself and then expect others to follow. You have to be able to create a sensation of safety that others are willing to follow you. And that creation of safety, there's the hiring manager. The hiring manager that does the first hiring is the one who puts the reputation online. So that person has to feel extreme safety in order to actually do that. And if you can do that as a group, if you can do that as a culture, if you have a culture that nourishes differences, you have a culture that nourishes differences of opinion, then you're going to thrive with it. to create those cultures.
And from the city's perspective, are there initiatives that are sort of pushing this messaging forward, that is driving home that this data means something?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a lot of cities are collaborating in starting to figure out ways of actually using more data to inform their decisions. I think that, for example, right now there's a big drive in trying to harness data about which people have which skills and where are they and why are they doing what they are. Do they actually want to be doing something else? So all of those things are very encouraging. But I think also there's a serious drive also within the city to be more aware of these DEI issues. I think maybe one of the challenges on my own journey, like along the way, is the fact that sometimes you have gatekeepers that present as allies, and especially in organizations that are very big, that have been around for a very long time. You tend to have somebody who always says, "But this is how we've always done it," and like that, which is okay, as long as the person is also willing to learn that, wait a minute, just because I'm stuck into certain ways of doing things, it doesn't mean necessarily that's always a good thing. And so this idea of kind of like switching gatekeepers into real allies, I think is a real issue.
And for everyone, how should organizations measure the success of these, initiatives? Where we know that those usually are the first cuts made, right? When things get tough. So, what is a measure of what, if we can all quickly say, what would you, what should be measured here when looking at diversity initiatives?
For me, like I said before, I want to see organizations that are taking the already available data, not making excuses, the already available information from society, and saying we are doing something specifically to remedy this and to correct this. So that is what is going to show me, yeah, they actually care. But if you're doing the same thing you're doing last year and shouting about, oh yeah, we have people from 10 different countries, that's to me, that's very safe to me. You're not taking an extra step to do something to change that something that actually needs to be changed. So I'm looking at companies that are saying, I'm dealing with this, we are dealing with this, this is what we are doing, and these are the results. That's how I measure diversity.
Yeah, I think from our end, I think maybe one of the things ideally that you would like to measure as a big organization is whether the efforts that you're making are towards pushing equality or equity. And this is maybe something that also affects a lot of big organizations, that, well, our starting point is equal treatment for everybody. And this idea of equity as a concept maybe hasn't seeped in. So, if I was to measure something, I say, especially like in public organizations going forward, is how much, equitable situations are you creating to ensure that people that maybe don't have the same starting point are actually finding their way to the places that they should be.
Yeah. Well, safety has been a theme or a safe space has been a theme pretty much brought up a few times here. So, Erja, your role places you at the heart of organizational transformation, right? Driving change toward more inclusive cultures. And so companies that effectively manage culture are 3.5 times more likely to outperform their peers. So what are the most effective strategies you've encountered or implemented to cultivate a culture that not only welcomes, but actually champions diversity in corporate leadership?
You know what, I'm going to tie my response to the previous question as well. I think there's a threefold thing that we should do to make this success visible. First of all, take all the day KPIs, all of the measures that you're doing already in your corporation. More than likely, most of us already are. Tie those results into your employee engagement surveys, people pulse surveys. What is the engagement level of the organization? What actions are we taking on the day scene to actually promote the employee well-being on the shop floors and in the organization? And then tie those to the third one, which is the business KPIs. Are we actually thriving or not? And then when we can actually make all of that visible, this is what we're doing, this is what it's doing to our well-being, this is what it's doing to our business success, there is no boundaries anymore. It actually goes away because we all want to succeed.
Can I add something?
Of course.
Thank you for mentioning equity, because this is one of the most important things, and that's why before I give the example of, you could be having an organization that has, for example, black women, but where are these black women from? So if they're from a very a richer nation, they've had probably better privileges in their own immediate families, and then you have another black woman who's coming from a different country, they are underdeveloped because of neocolonialism, then it's kind of like we need to start having organizations. I measure organizations that say, you know what, it's not simply about our internal staff or the people we already have from here or there. It's also about society, and it's also about the countries that are underdeveloped because of business, because of capitalism. So to me, that's what matters, because you could be here in one room saying, you know what, we are this big organization, this is what we do for our staff, we have so much diversity, everyone is happy. But then if you are tied to abusing other people from other countries, I think everyone should start waking up and asking, what are you doing? How can you be in the next room having a party while in the other room there are people suffering because of your business? So to me, as a person from Africa, from Kenya, that's what I look like. I look at. So I don't want you making people suffer and having parties.
Takura.
That was a lot. That was a lot.
Your expertise in migration affairs and understanding of corporate sectors in Nordics, you have a unique view on trends that influence businesses, right? Migrant trends that influence business. So, considering the low nationality diversity and leadership that we have here in Finland, how do you perceive the integration of international talent impacting leader diversity within Helsinki's business landscape? And or can you share some sort of insights or success stories where diverse leadership has notably driven organizational success?
Wow, that's a tough one. But yeah, I think that at least on the conversations that I've been having with my colleagues on the Migrant Expert Forum, there's a lot of things that are starting to kind of like flow through. These similarities between highly educated migrants actually remaining underemployed or unemployed. A beautiful research just got published a week ago as well about how highly educated migrants are now starting to create a second class of people here and stuff like that. But essentially, for example, I know a handful of people here in Finland that have been doing really great work. And I think that they're pushing, that the leadership in their fields exceptionally well and setting trends. For example, Mr. Kauyewa, who's in design and has been doing, furniture and glasses, and you have Reggie Rusan in the IT sector, and you have a lot of other internationals that are doing. Our director, who's from Germany and came here as a student in Jyväskylä, and now is the head of migration affairs unit in Helsinki. So there are good cases of where diverse leadership is making an impact. But I like what you said specifically. How do we normalize the business case for DEI in all of these organizations so that we can actually start to sell the story of the success rather than perceiving the whole thing as a challenge constantly? And if we're talking about integration in general, because integration in almost all Nordic countries is only measured by your employment, right? This is the ideal goal. Is he employed? Whether that employment is the employment that you want to be in, that you're qualified for, that doesn't really matter for that what we measure. To have a more holistic approach to what are the things that are actually supposed to be taken into consideration when we're talking about integration. We start talking about well-being. We start talking about the ability to participate and make decisions and all of those things. If you have a more holistic approach to integration, and to have a realistic understanding that what is this language issue? Where is it actually? What does it actually have an impact on? Does it have an impact on how effective a leader can be, depending on what he's leading? Is he leading a team of people that are only speaking one language, or is he actually coming to lead change, or is he coming to lead something else? And these are the things that we need to start kind of like, I think, tailoring our understanding of the opportunities that we have to actually harness people's skills versus just kind of like standardizing that, hey, if you don't speak Finnish C1, that's it. So, and I think that's where we're losing. If you're looking at the statistics that got published last year, basically it reports that all of the net job growth in Finland over since the year 2000 has been because of migrants. Our economic dependency ratio right now is sitting at 130 to 100. So 130 unemployed people to 100. We really have to make some drastic changes if we need to understand that, one, our companies to survive, but also the welfare state needs to survive. And by not harnessing the skills of internationals that are here, and the internationals that are other places that want to come here to actually help to build the welfare state, I think we're just making a mistake for ourselves. Just yesterday, or was it the day before, they said that we even have to start thinking of cutting elake. What is this? Pensions, because of these things. And yet there is hundreds of thousands of internationals that are sitting in their homes in this country somewhere, wanting and willing to do work and to contribute and to lead change, come up with new ideas, start new companies, broaden out Finnish markets, do all of those things. And we're sitting on all of that gold mine of talent. I think it's crazy.
I think we also need to start thinking, because I'm coming from an African culture, we don't have the kellers, we don't have all the social welfare. The way we function is by helping each other. We use words like harambe, uhuru, and these are words that mean and ujama, they mean just coming together as a community and working together. And I find that that is what is lacking, because most people tend to be very individualistic, but that's not going to work in the long run. So we need to start seeing, what am I doing for the person who's next to me? And even if I am marginalized, there's someone else who's going to be more marginalized than I am. Like myself, I know when to shut up. Because I come from Africa, yeah, but the other women coming from Africa who've had very many different challenges, they're also marginalized by religion, which I'm not. So I need to be able to make space for them. And this is the thing we're trying to say when we talk about real DEI work. We need to start thinking as a community. You need to help the other person. You need to uplift the other person, but it has to be intentional. And this is how we also we understand equity. So we cannot think everyone is going through life in an equal or in the same way. That is not real. So help the other person. And that's why I also again say, it's not just about what is happening internally to your staff. They're well paid, they have all these holidays. But what about your supply chain? What about where you're getting your resources? Are they coming from Africa? How are the people there living? So the more we keep thinking separately about, this is our organization, this is our industry, this is just us, that's not going to work. We need to start thinking of as a global community. That's the only real DEI work.
Yeah. I have 20,000 more questions, but I am looking at the clock, and I really want to open it to our audience, because I know that you probably have a ton of questions for us as well. My colleague Adam has a microphone. Because we're recording, if you could just wait for him to see you, if you have your hand up, and speak into the microphone so that the recording can hear it. We have one right up here.
Borehket, mun namale Martin Erik, and that was about as much Northern Sami as I remember. Happy Sami Day for everyone. I'd like to tie back to one thing that Mary mentioned. She gave the hypothetical example that some employer has people from 10 different countries. And this is an item that Mary and I have often commented on LinkedIn. Okay, you say you have people from 10 different countries. How many in marketing? How many in sales?
Yes.
How many in management?
How
many on the company board? And the usual answer is a big silence. Oh, right, you meant 10 different nations on the factory floor. None of them in important roles, none of them in high-paid roles. And I have a very example of that. One friend found me the perfect job ever in her company. Director of communications. And she said, you have fluent Finnish, you have Swedish, you have, name it, you have it. That job's for you. And please mention my name as a reference. Result, 19 applicants, I wasn't invited. 3 people invited, didn't fit. And then it clicked, wait, I know 2 other people at that company. One of them is a Finn. Okay, the Finn's gonna tell me straight up, let's ask the Finn. Well, you're applying for a director of communications position. Are you applying from a director of communications position? No, then you're not gonna get it. Okay, how do I get to that position? Well, you have to start as expert. Okay, how do I get an expert position in communications? Big silence. Well, I guess those jobs are kind of meant for Finns. And that's why you have almost no foreigners in leadership position, because, oh surprise, you have almost no foreigner in expert position. And I'm looking at the room, I recognize many faces. I recognize, among other things, people who were key people at Nokia during Nokia's good old days, who haven't found much of anything meaningful since then, for instance. So if we don't get to have expert positions, except maybe as our first job and then nothing, we're never going to get to leadership jobs. Likewise, on the public sector.
I want to be. Is there a question? Because I see a bunch.
No,
of
there's
other
an
hands
expert
coming.
opinion.
Yeah. Just because we know that I know that there's a lot of people who
Right.
actually have questions. So
We're going to get to that.
Yeah, please.
So, Takura, you work for the city of Helsinki. If you look at Helsinki Sanomat, there was an article about me. I applied for a communication job too, oh surprise, at Helsinki, an employer that wants to attract foreigners. I got the same old, yeah, this is a job for Finns. So, city of Helsinki, I'm sorry for pardon my French, get your head out of your ass. Thank you.
Okay.
I was really struck. Thank you for the panel discussion, first of all. And I really was struck by this phrase that Takura used about gatekeeper presenting as ally. I think that's a very important point I would like to us to focus on. And Joe, you could decide who answers this question. But my question is, have you ever come across a really good case of such a gatekeeper actually really turning into an ally? And my question is driven by the fear that such a person is highly unlikely to volunteer for training or coaching or any kind of mirror in face which might distort their view of themselves as a perfectly anti-racist human. And so I would really like some hope that such gatekeepers can be turned around. Have you got an example?
Yeah, actually, I do have one, and I will do my best to try and not divulge when and where or how this was. But I think in this one particular case, I think the gatekeeping was more something that was attached to the individual's own role and the practice, and also an awareness of certain things. So I remember, for example, we had a discussion about the origins of the language test. And she was saying, yeah, well, but language tests are good because, this is how people get national, like this is how we figure out if people are good. And then I was saying to her, yeah, but have you read this story in Australia about how they started doing language tests because they were trying to control the amount of Asian people that could actually get nationality in Australia? And it's this very old book. I'm not saying that that's the first, but like that, do you understand the origins and the complications of some of these things that people struggle with, and how it's become so normalized that it's actually affecting people's real lives, especially in spaces. In that context, we were having this conversation because we were talking about the opportunity of actually taking on an individual who was learning Finnish from a certain language, from a certain background. And luckily, after I recommended that book, she became a little bit more curious about a lot of things, and I started giving her a lot more data and a lot more information and opening up these little things. So slowly but surely, she started to change the way that she did her things within the organization. But I also think that at some point she realized that maybe she was in the wrong profession, and she actually changed jobs.
Oh.
Yes.
So in terms of your personal qualities that you drew on to make this be instrumental in this change, would you say you drew on courage and patience and your knowledge?
I would say sometimes people refuse to change because they are unaware. So sometimes just exposing people to information, to experiences, it's almost like, why sometimes people have a very hard time hanging out with other people is because they're like, "Ooh, who are those people? We've never seen people like that." But then the moment you play some good music and you make some food and you start to hang out, it's kind of like, oh, okay. So I think it's a lot of times it's a process of enlightenment. But again, it all depends on what the motivation of the gatekeeper is. Because if the motivation of the gatekeeper in a Foucault kind of like way is to really maintain power and control that power and not want to give it up because any sort of kind of like sharing of power feels like a complete loss of it, then that's a lost cause.
So you need to be curious to find out their driver. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing.
So we have time for maybe two more questions. There's up front, and then let's go to the stairs after, since they're so far away. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thanks. I don't think I was next, but I'll take it. So thanks, panel. I think this is really great thoughts. As someone who's been in Finland for almost 2 years now, I want to ask a two-part question. And so the first part is, this question around diversity. How realistic is it to think that, I know all the data, I know that companies that are more diverse should be performing better, but despite that, we're seeing a lack of diversity, and companies are still doing okay. And someone who's worked in corporate for one of the big fours, no disrespect to any of the panelists, but it's quite a normal thing for corporates to put lipstick on a turd because that's what we're good at doing. And I think, yes, you see marginal change over time and you see improvement. So the first question is, how realistic is it to see change? And I know there are individuals who are skilled, who are in the country already, but is that ever going to happen? Or will it only happen that diversity, when the market pushes for it, then they'll go into other places elsewhere in the world and attract the talent that they need because they have no choice to do so. But the business actually makes it happen. And then the second part is a South African, where we had, post 94, we had this legislated change. You needed black economic empowerment, which I think to one extent was good because companies are profit-driven, should never be expected to do the right thing because it's the right thing. And so when you step in and you force them as government or some authority to say, make these changes, the problem with that is they're going to find ways around it. And so you have a few, very few individuals who are then, become what they call the black diamonds, been given a lot of wealth, and are able to meet on paper the requirements of diversity, whether it comes to management, ownership, board representation, etc. But because they aren't, well, I guess it became more complicated over time, but you always have these corporates that, whether it's the Big Four or the Bains or McKinsey's, that the smartest people are there earning the biggest bucks, and so they're always ahead of the curve. So not to be too pessimistic after quite an insightful panel, but interesting to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Would you?
This is probably a question for me. That is very weird from where I come from, that thinking, because our organization is fully open for everyone. It's absolutely fully open for everyone. When I walk into the cafeteria, I don't see a preference of a human being. I see lots of diversity in our corridors every day and all the time. I know that is not the case for some of the other big fours, but that's the case for us at least. We don't have a barrier of entry. We hire anyone who can meet the standards of the position that we have open. So to me, it feels weird why this thing still keeps going on. It's not in my world at all present.
Do you have black women in leadership in your organization?
I just hire the manager. She's not black, but
Well, I am asking about black.
Yeah.
This is about perception. So it depends on whom you're asking and context as well. If you ask a Finnish person, she sees no problem in her industry. She sees no problem in her company. But then the minute I ask, do you see me in that organization? The minute I ask, it doesn't matter whether it's Google or Microsoft or Tesla, you are all getting resources from Africa. But if I ask you, do you see an African woman there? Can you give me an answer that is sufficient? And can anyone also defend and say that, you know what, we don't need them because they live there? Well, if you had more African women there, then you would stop abusing these countries, wouldn't you? Because it also shows that the more diverse, the less diversity you have, the more abuse we're going to keep seeing. So people need to start thinking, really, what are we celebrating? What are we celebrating?
I can only agree with that, and I definitely hope that the next time that we open a position, but that someone of color would actually apply. But that's not the case at the moment. So I don't know how many people we have here.
And when I say black women, I mean black women, because people in Finland, they have this confusion. The minute we talk about racism, they bundle every single person as a monolith. So when we say want diversity, I mean Asian, I mean African, I mean different people. So as a black woman, I want to see myself. It doesn't help me when you have 20 people from different parts of the world, and I don't see anyone who identifies as an African ancestry person. So this is another thing that companies need to understand. When we mean diversity, we mean diversity.
If I could also just add to that, if that's okay, that, by the way, Southern Africa. See, you mentioned something very important. South Africa made a conscious decision after 1994, after many, many years of apartheid, to put in a position, to put in a legal structure that was meant to positively discriminate the economic environment in a way then that should have benefited people of color. The challenge with Finland, and this is something that I've come across in some conversations and different things, is that because Finland doesn't share that similar history or a history of slavery or a history of oppression in that same manner, the approach to this kind of problem solving is not necessarily always like a legal approach, although some positive discrimination happens. For example, there's positive discrimination that happens in the supply of funding to certain schools that fit certain criteria and hit certain indicators. But it's very hard to sell the idea that you need to have a legislative approach to solving a problem that is not historically part of the legacy of this kind of like structural thing.
Being black in the EU. Can you speak about being black in the EU? Because Finland has been ranked as #1 in 2018 as being the most anti-black country. So forget apartheid in South Africa. #2, last year in October, they released another report that places Finland as top 3 with Austria and Germany. So we cannot say that we need history. We do not need to understand about slavery to be able to make changes that are needed. So being black in the EU report places Finland at the top of anti-blackness. Can we ignore that?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
And actually, I was about to exactly mention that, is that even without that legacy, and you start realizing that you have systemic issues within your country or within your organization, the fact that people then start to tell you, for example, there's a whole Reddit about Finland being known for having very weird names of islands. Right? I'm not going to go into the names of those islands, but please do go ahead and research this. So we had a very interesting conversation at some point trying to change the name of an island that had a very bad name. And the issue there again, because we don't have the legacy, they were like, well, but we didn't mean it that way. And this is sometimes kind of like the friction that you get in trying to drive change when people don't feel responsible for something because they don't have a legacy towards it, even though it's affecting the new people that are now part of the community. So that's what I was trying to get at. So legislating around it is going to be a challenge, but I don't have the solution.
I don't either, but I would like to tap into the first word I think that we use, which is awareness. I think that awareness is great, and it's what we need, because that's exactly what we're building here. That's exactly what I'm gaining all the time. So awareness.
3,000 reactions. But when Mary speaks about anti-blackness, everyone wants to say that's not us. Well, guess what? You may be having black people in your employment and they are telling you these nice things, but they will still go back there when it's time to do the surveys and the questionnaires and they will tell the truth. So what do you prefer? Do you want to keep hiding and only celebrating the good things? Or do you actually want to understand that people are actually suffering and do something about it? So it's not about, well, I'm not racist. It's not an individual thing. It's simply, well, it could be sometimes, but we need to understand that every organization needs to say that we have a xenophobia problem, we have a racism problem, and we were going to solve it, and we're going to solve it like this. But you cannot keep saying, well, we're going to wait till we're told we're the happiest people. It's not going to work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think accountability and equity is
Yes.
definitely something that we should all strive to becoming a little more aware of. We can't take another question because they're going to stick around and they're going to be in the networking portion because it's one of the most important parts of these events too. Like you mentioned in your speech, meeting everyone.
Can I ask for a favor?
Yes.
Erica I'm sure she has a burning question. Ask it very quickly. I'm doing this for you. Ask it very quickly.
With the mic, otherwise we won't hear.
Very quickly. Because she's been raising her hand and no one saw her.
Thank you so much. It is very quick, and you had an amazing global discussion, but I want to bring it to the practical because in my free time, I help a lot of international talent, and I help them and try to help them get a job and with all that stuff. And what I notice is that there is such a huge divide between companies and the city and all their services, and so often people come to me and have absolutely no clue how companies want the most basic things, like they're starting with just application materials. So my question and maybe my invitation is like, what can we do to actually try to make this gap as small as possible? Because that is a huge barrier that I see every day with the people I help.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very good point, and I think that's something that we started to realize is, one, companies are not aware of all of the services that are available. Internationals don't necessarily know where to get information from. There's a huge network of third sector actors that are doing work underground that is not being supported. And ideally, we're trying to get into a place where we kind of like get everybody around the table, let people that have specialities in helping certain groups of people to do so and be supported through that. But we all know that NGOs have a hard time getting funding and things like that. So that's all work in progress still. But I would say let's keep in touch because there's a lot of things that are in the pipeline that we're working on and trying to engage the community itself to solve also some of the community's own problems as well. So, let's find ways to work together.
Let's give everyone on stage a huge. We could have done it another hour or so. So please, I'm going to do some due diligence, but they're going to stick around for networking. So please come. Adam will take your mics off. Let's keep it going for Eriya, Mary, and Takura. Okay, so. Stick with me quickly. So I want you to thank you for joining us for this vital conversation on leadership. Our panelists, as you saw, brilliantly brought to light the real-life challenges and transformative strategies needed to bridge the gap between good intention and meaningful change. They reminded us that diversity in leadership isn't just about statistics, it's about enriching our workplaces with varied perspectives, expertise, and ideas. So as we wrap up the evening, let's take these insights to heart, fostering a workplace culture that doesn't just welcome diversity, but celebrates it and thrives on it. So your engagement today is super powerful and prompting just that. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we're a community, right? We're that safe space for the changing of ideas such as this to happen. And we have a bunch of events or new series that we've been working on. So like I mentioned today, Hired is a once a month series, usually the first Tuesday through Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of the month. So the next event that we're hosting is actually next Tuesday. It's the launch or the kickoff of of our new AI series called AI Surge. This is going to be 8 events in 2024 set to explore the expansive and dynamic world of artificial intelligence. So this series is going to dive into a myriad of AI applications and ethical considerations, from the complexities of multimodal deep learning to the transformative impact of AI in industries such as retail, finance, and entertainment. So on February 3rd, we have 2 talks, one on multimodality and the second on deep learning. Much like this, all events are free and open to attend. There's a QR code to scan. To end the month, we launch another new series called Sustainable Solutions. This is an event series presented by us here at Epicenter, and it's dedicated to looking at the innovations in green and clean technology. So over the course of 2024, we're going to host events where we delve into the sort of dynamic world of green energy, eco-friendly strategies, sustainable development, and much more. On Feb 27th, like I mentioned, we kick off the series with sustainable manufacturing. So here we're going to examine the essential role of sustainability in today's manufacturing practices. So we want you to sort of join us to sort of understand sustainable methods and AI technologies and how they're fundamentally changing the manufacturing industry. I don't have a slide for the next event because we actually haven't put this on our major landing page or website, but just like last year, it was such an amazing event. So on March 8th, join us for Epicenter Founder Stories on International Women's Day. So this is recognizing the pivotal role of women founders in shaping industries and setting new benchmark. The event is dedicated to spotlighting the extraordinary achievements and relentless spirit of 6 remarkable entrepreneurs. These trailblazing women, hailing from diverse sectors such as tech, healthcare, and operational excellence, will take the stage to narrate their inspiring stories, overcoming hurdles, and crafting success narratives. Last year, we had 250 people, I think, attend that. And gentlemen, you're allowed to attend as well. Please be an advocate for women entrepreneurs. It's a great opportunity to meet and expand your network too. Speaking of which, this is the time where we all get up, we meet one another, we get to know who's here. You bombard our brilliant speakers with all the questions that I didn't let you get to ask. But first, I'm going to steal them for just 3 minutes while we take a few pictures on stage. But there's food here for you to enjoy. The bar will stay open. Adam is going to spin the beats. But thank you all so much for being here, and we'll see you at the next event. Thank you so much.